So in this video, I'm going to be interpreting a Horary question on will I get the job? So this is a chart that I cast for myself after an interview, and I wanted to gauge whether or not I would be considered for the position after said interview. So I cast this chart, and in Horary charts, if you cast a chart for yourself, or really even if you're interpreting the chart for someone else, like as an astrologer, the person who is asking the question is going to be represented by the ascendant. So in this chart, 27 degrees of Cancer is on the ascendant. And so I'm going to be represented by the planet that rules the ascendant, which in this case is going to be the moon in Aries here in the ninth house. And this lets me know that the chart is radical because the job was actually in a location that is far, not that far actually, about 100 or so miles away from where I currently reside. And it's actually a job that I used to be in, that I used to work at. And what happened was, I think last year, once a lot of that Trump stuff happened, they let a lot of us go. And the job was in public health. So if you're familiar with American politics, you'll know that there's been like an attack on public health. And so a lot of people who worked in that sector lost their jobs. And I was one of those people. And so I ended up, just continuing with school. I graduated and I decided to see if they had another position available for me to apply to. One that felt a bit more stable. So I applied, got called in for an interview, and by my standards, the interview actually went well. And as you can see here, the moon in Aries is ruled by Mars, and Mars is ruling the job in this chart because when you're asking a question about whether or not you're going to get a job, you want to look at the sign on the midheaven. And in this chart, 16 degrees of Aries is on the midheaven, which means that Mars in Aquarius in the seventh house is going to represent the job. And so what we have here is me really wanting the job and feeling like I'm going to be a good fit for the job because when you finally plan it in a particular sign, that means that it really likes the planet that rules it. And so if the moon is in Aries, this moon really likes Mars. Mars is ruling the 10th house. So this was a job that I was really, really gunning for. No pun intended, right? Aries. And another thing that was interesting is that in my own natal chart, I have my moon in Aries in the ninth house. And so this was kind of spot on with that. I was like, yeah, this chart is definitely radical. And radical just means that the chart is fit to be judged and will yield very reliable results if you interpret it correctly. So ideally, what we want to see is an applying aspect between the significators. We want to see an applying aspect between Moon and Mars. And in this chart, what we have is the moon separating from the sextile of Mars. Separating aspects show things that have already happened, and those planets are said to be in sort of a disregard for each other. And so, right away, that wasn't the most positive sign because, again, an applying aspect is going to show where something is coming together, something is coming into fruition, where separating means these things are separating, just as it says, and they're in disregard for each other. They're moving on away from each other. And that's not the most positive sign when you're asking a question on whether or not you'll get the job. So I didn't like that. But what I really didn't like was this Mars here that is under combustion. As you can see, Mars is very close to the sun. And so Mars in this chart is combust. And combust is one of the biggest impediments that a planet can have. When a planet is combust, which means that it is very close to the sun, that planet is said to be overwhelmed and burned out by the dry heat of the sun. So the planet loses its visibility, it becomes hidden, and it can't manifest its significations because it doesn't have the power to do so. It is being weakened or burned up by the sun. And so when we translate that from astrology talk to a real world application, this could mean that the job, in a way, is being hidden from me or it's being burned up. It's not able to manifest. And so I really took that to mean that this chart isn't really giving me the answer that I want, but it's leaning, so it's leaning more so towards a no. And then I looked at the fact that the Mars was in the seventh house, and the seventh house deals with the competitor, right? So the fact that this job is in the house of the competitor is showing that the job is going to someone else. And the reason that the seventh house represents the competitor or the other person is because it is the house that is diametrically opposed to the ascendant. So if the ascendant is me, that means the opposite house is the other. So it's my competition. And Mars is in Aquarius, which means that Mars really likes the planet Saturn, and Saturn is the planet that rules this seventh house. And so, taking all of that together, this is showing that I will not get the job and that it is going to go to somebody else. And that is exactly what happened. I received an email a couple of days ago, I think this Friday, and they were like, oh, the standard, typical shit. Oh, you know, thank you for applying, but at this time we've decided to go with another applicant. Please keep us in mind for all your future endeavors and blah, blah, blah. So, yes, I didn't get the job, and I think it is well shown by the separating aspect between Moon and Mars, but especially Mars being combust. And as I'm looking at this chart, I find it interesting that in my natal chart, I have Saturn at the 14th degree of Aries. And so my natal Saturn is conjoined this horary midheaven. And so I usually don't combine natal and horary, but I just can't ignore that. Like, that's kind of like a no, like that's saying no. And even the term of the ascendant is in Saturn, and that could give us a more negative overview of what's to come. And so I hope you found this video informative. Horary can be very helpful, and something about being able to interpret this from the chart helps to soften the blow. So I kind of knew it was coming. I didn't get my hopes up, but I still was trying to be delusional. But yes, bittersweet because I didn't get the job, but sweet because I did accurately say to myself once I casted this chart that I don't think I'm gonna get it. So yeah, hope you all like this video. If you want more, let me know and I'll upload some more horror videos.